China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff, your host. My guests each week, Nan Su, a senior reporter for the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, who is a first-hand survivor of the re-education camps under Chairman Mao in the Cultural Revolution of mainland China. We have a great program for you. In a few minutes, we'll check in with Amy and find out her story to begin our show. We also have some great guests, as Nan is about to tell us, some great guests scheduled for our first hour as well.
Yes, we're going to have actually a return guest. People probably still remember him, the retired Air Force General Robert Spalding, who is currently a senior research fellow in the Hudson Institute. And the reason we are having him, it's two reasons. Number
Lots
one,
of news today.
A lot of news. Number one, of course, August 1st. August 1st is coming, just like a couple days. August 1st is the anniversary of China's military, China's PLA, People's Liberation Army. So that's it was considered established on 1927, August the 1st. So PLA's military anniversary is coming. China is doing a lot of things inside China. Of course, one of the things they are doing is they're building more than 100. It's like 110 silos. 919 silos.
Missile silos in the desert outside of right near a camp.
Right near the Xinjiang area, the labor camp for the Uyghurs, right? So they're not afraid of it. They know the Western world is watching the area, and they just building the nuclear silos right there. So we're going to talk about that. And also another thing is United States it's withdrawing from Afghanistan, while after we make an announcement of the withdrawal, and China invited leaders of Taliban to go to China, meet China's foreign minister.
And what folks may not know, or if you're not real up on your geography, if you look closely at a map, China shares a border. A very small, short, I think 90-kilometer border.
92.5 kilometer border with Afghanistan, while that's China is on the east side of Afghanistan, while Iran is on the west side. So China now, after United States withdraw their force from Afghanistan, now China basically it's linked directly to Iran.
So before we get to all of this really uplifting talk about China and the military buildup, I think we should probably check in with Amy Howe, who is standing by. She has our story for us, and we look forward to this every week, because every time Amy talks about something from her past, it comes back to fit right in with what we're talking about today. Amy, how are you?
I'm fine. Very good.
Good.
This week, I remember the last 2 weeks, I talk about during the Father's Day, and I reconnect with my friend and childhood friend. And so they all grew up without the father. And most of the time, their father was in jail, and someone was executed. So today, I want to talk about is my old friend and neighbor. And she lives in the United States, in New York now. And her childhood was a really horrible and it's very sad story. And I was born 1952 in Shanghai, and we live in the apartment complex. We live on the second floor. And so 1955, I think I was 3 years old or something, and the downstairs, first floor, moved in a newlywed couple. And the guy is work for the international trading department from Shanghai city government. And he was graduated from Zhenjiang University, which was a Christian school, American established in Shanghai. And it's very, they have all kind of things, especially business school is very, very good, and medical school too. And so he is a student there with us, and then during that time he joined the underground Communist Party when he was in Zhenjiang University. And so he spoke very good English, so the government, the communists took over. And so they hired him. He graduated. They hired him as the international trading department in Shanghai government. And his wife also is from Zhenjiang University. And eventually, they chopped up this Christian school to different departments, different university. Of course, changing the name to a Chinese name, so no longer Western influence. And his wife was graduated from the journalism department and eventually became Fudan University. And she graduated, after she graduated, she was hired as a reporter for the one of a very prestigious Shanghai newspaper, which was they existing before communists took over. And it's supposed to be the free speech kind of newspaper. And so, and my little friend, and his name is Mimi, and he was born 1956. And right after they get married, 1 year later after the couple get married. And then 1957, so they started this movement called I think I mentioned the last week about the 100 flower blooming, 1,000 birds singing. And so the Communist Party said that they wanted to have all kind of suggestions. And Communist Party is not a one voice party and one opinion party. So you can freely express all your opinions for everything. And they welcome for your criticism. So that time, and Mimi's mother, and she's a reporter. She's a very outspoken woman, lady, outstanding. And so she wrote lots of things about Communist Party, and mostly in good intention to criticizing them. But anyway, because the movement is actually the Mao set a date and said to get this poison snake come out of the cave. So she become one of a poison snake, and then one of a poison flower, and then, so they had to kill the mockingbird. So they arrested her, and that time my friend Mimi, and only 1 year old, and then put her in the labor camp, but not too far away from Shanghai. And then they they forced actually her father to divorce her mother, and but they were very happy they get married, and they in love, they love each other. So he didn't want to divorce her, so he was begging his leader in the department. Even he wrote a letter to mayor of Shanghai, and to just say that, of course, he cannot say something about anti-racist movement. So all he can say is that my wife made a mistake, and but she will be reformed. So I wait for her. So he just didn't want to divorce her and end this so the happy family life, right? And so he had to work. So he hired a nanny and to raise the little girl. And then, meanwhile, for years, I think from 1957 to 1965, I mean 8 years he working on, and always write a letter to his leader and for something to let his wife out the reform labor camp. And doesn't matter, she was not working, lost a job or whatever. They didn't want anything, just wanted her back to home. So finally, one of his leader in that department is very sympathized him. So he said, "Oh, she already there, reform for 7-8 years. So maybe just let her go and just come home and just don't let her to work and writing or anything. Just like a housewife. She lost her job, everything, that's fine. Just let her go." So finally they did. And then 1 year later, 1966, and the Cultural Revolution happened. Okay. And then, and that department, I think, I'm talking about Mimi's father, have an older brother. And he also joined the Communist Party in the Zhejiang University. That time it was underground, the Communist Party. They both joined. He was responsible for a bigger institute. They're making a dictionary kind of thing. And then Cultural Revolution, they always started this intellectual departments. So he also being hit, and then he just couldn't bear the humiliations, and so he just jumped out of the window. And then his brother, so that's Mimi's father, go there to identify the body, and also you have to go there in front of everybody to denounce, saying your brother was betrayed the Communist Party, and there was an anti-Mao's revolution. And so he did all this steps. He come home and he tell his wife, Mimi is very young, so he didn't know anything about. And the saying is, he said, if I die, I just don't want my family to collect my body. I'm gonna do other way. I probably going to buy take ferry ticket and jump in the ocean. So that finished, they say. So he's saying about that. That was 1966. And then 1967, somehow, and that the place he worked, and his boss, and then other couple of big boss, they all being accused as an anti-Mao, anti-cultural revolution, and so including him. So they have this criticized meeting and torture them, and beat them, and humiliating them. And then also mention one thing is his boss was get the class enemy out of a labor camp, which was his wife. So they say that they're gonna send his wife back, and they're gonna put them all in jail, so all kind of things. So he thinks the bigger stones coming again, and the whole family there's no reason can be stay together anymore. So at the night, I think he gave it up, and so he bought a ticket, and the ferry ticket to Ningbo, which was a port from Shanghai, so you can jump into the ocean. So he did that. So when my friend, my neighbor, and she grew up, and she told me once, she said that, when I finally got my mother back, I lost my father. He said, maybe that's my fate. I just cannot have my parents, both parents. And so, but I think she's brave. Most of the time she didn't want us to talk about that. And, because it's too painful. But she still, tried to not to talk about or remember those things. And I think one year, one of my friends went to Shanghai make I think it's 2005 or even earlier, to make a documentary called The Wild East, talking about predicted it's a very good documentary movie, predicted in China next 20 years they will have a tremendous changes, and they will have lots of millionaires. So it was predicted politically and financially, but the political prediction, which was not that accurate. He think that they will be open. I think most of the Americans think, when the China economy develop a lot of foreign investment and they have a middle class, so the political thing is going to change in too. But it's never happened. Just go the other way. And so I sent her this movie. They made the movie. I sent her this to Mimi, and she watching it again. She told me, and she said that I said maybe you can tell your story, and at least to your daughter. And she said, I'm not ready. I just so vulnerable. I watching this movie because this movie documentary also record some famous Chinese movie actress and how they suicide in Cultural Revolution, all kind of things. She said, it's just so vulnerable to watching these things. But I wanted to watch it again, but I just not able to talk about it. So until recently, I think, before, just after pandemic, because last year, I think, and her daughter grew up, and she wanted to write a book about how the young people born in America, how they look back, and their parents suffered this Cultural Revolution. So use their young people's view, and it was connected to the China. The parents was connected to the Cultural Revolution. So it was interesting. And so she needed to interview 5 people. And but Mimi still not able to talk about it. He said just too emotional. So he recommended her daughter to interview me. So about how the labor can, re-education can, the stories. So I talked to her about this. So I think it was good because at least the younger generation, some was interested and they wanted to know the truth.
Wow. So that is amazing. And each one of these stories, in some way or another ends up very sad.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I say the nature of the Communist Party never change. Actually, they are building the nuclear silos, as we talk about. That's what we're going to talk about today. And a lot of people thinking, China has already changed. China, yeah, and which I personally do not think so. So we're going to talk about that, and then we, regarding China, it's building nuclear silos. Right now, we have a special guest today. He's our return guest, United States Air Force retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding. He's one of our return guests. He has a BS and MS degree in agricultural business from Fresno State University, California, and followed by a PhD in economics and mathematics from University of Missouri. And also he served as a U.S. senior defense official and defense attaché to China between May 2017 to January 2018, and he was promoted to Brigadier General in November of 2017. 16 in U.S. Air Force.
Wow, that's quite a resume.
It's very impressive. So, General Spalding, General Spalding, welcome back to our program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Have you read the news that China is building 119 nuclear silos in Xinjiang area?
Yes, I have seen that.
That's quite a photograph. I saw that photograph just a few minutes before we started the show today. It looks like there's really not much else out there except a whole bunch of missile silos under construction.
Well, and I think the problem is that we're not really sure what they are, whether they're actually active silos, whether they're meant to be decoys, what type of missiles could possibly be in there. I think there's still a lot of questions with regard to what it actually represents.
Let me ask you this, General. Why would they want to concentrate so many launch sites all in one place when it seems to me it would be easier to defend if it were spread out a little bit?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, we have missile silos spread throughout the upper Midwest, and they are not concentrated. So again, that leads you to believe that we don't know all the information with regard to these silos.
Wow, this is just so, in light of what's going on in Afghanistan, the United States moving down its troops and China trying to move in almost immediately, and then you see on the other side of the world, in China itself, you see, this supposed construction site of missiles. What's your make on this? What's your take?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is that in this era, geography is not necessarily the most important factor. In fact, when you look at the Chinese Communist Party and their goals with regard to their strategy, a lot of it revolves around collection of data. So when you think of the world in terms of data and not geography, it's a far different strategy. Their goal is to become the Saudi Arabia of data, and that's because data drives artificial intelligence, and their intent is to become dominant in artificial intelligence, which is considered an interesting technology both for commercial and military use. And so I think when we start to look at the world today and we understand that we have globalization, we have a global internet, we have interconnectivity on a scale never before in human history, and we've tightened the relationships between democracies and totalitarian regimes, and data really is the equivalent of power in this instance of the world, then it's a completely different look. So it may not mean that much that the geography with regard to Afghanistan, but data and the collection of data and the use of data is very important. On the silos in particular, where nuclear weapons are concerned, nuclear weapons still have relevance in national security because they are very destructive, and in fact that's what drives competition into data and into finance, into the academic environment, into science and technology. And so we have to understand we're operating in a fundamentally different world today. The companies that existed in 2007 that were the top in our economy are far different from today. So 2007 when the iPhone came out, I talk about ExxonMobil and AT&T and General Electric and Shell and Microsoft as the top 5 in market cap. 10 years later, it's Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. So it's a completely different economic environment. It's a completely different social and political environment. And the business models and the technologies developed after the end of the Cold War by Silicon Valley really reflect this ability to influence individual behavior. First, it was consumer behavior, but increasingly, and especially where the Chinese Communist Party is involved, it involves social and political behavior. So the collection of your data for the purpose of influencing your actions is what we're talking about.
So they know. Here, what bothers me is they know that we are watching the Xinjiang area. They know that that's the area we are accusing them for genocide, and they are. Do you think they're just purposely building the nuclear silo right there, right next actually to the labor camps? Is it just because they don't like that we criticize that they are doing the genocide?
No, I don't know what So the thing with regard to the Chinese nuclear missile challenge, for the most part, it's a mobile challenge. So they have mobile missiles. The United States is really the only nation right now that has active missile silos. The Chinese, for the most part, use mobile missiles. The other thing they have is MIRVs, so multiple independent retargetable vehicles on the missiles, which the U.S. doesn't have. Mobile missiles, in a sense, can be a lot more difficult to deal with than missiles in silos. So again, I don't think we have the full story with regard to these silos, why they've been built, what they're built for. Typically, when you co-locate missile silos in this way, it would be more associated with a missile defense system than it would be for an offensive system.
General, I have a question for you. I remember I was in China at the time, 1960s, during the Cold War, and they started developing the nuclear weapon. Also in that location, that's the location they start, because I think there's less people, and then the desert or some Gobi desert, so over there. But that time when they started, very primitive. And so they, of course, they ask all the people, like we had to do exercise, to make those bomb shelters, to protect us. So just wanted to tell people, Russian is the number one enemy and gonna have a nuclear war, and so an internal intention will be released. But what's right now? What's the capability, nuclear capability, compared with the Russian and American? So what's the Chinese capability now?
Actually, their capability in missiles is far more advanced than the United States. They have what's called the DF-21, DF-26. These are missiles that can be retargeted in flight, and they can be used to take out an aircraft carrier. That's a capability that the United States doesn't have. So they've actually moved ahead in terms of ballistic missile technology. I would say in nuclear weapons, they are increasing their nuclear stockpile, which is concerning. That being said, I do not see the potential for the United States and China to get involved in a shooting war. I think that would be very risky and damaging for both societies and perhaps for the whole world. So I don't think nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles will result in any kind of direct conflict between the U.S. and China, but I do believe that the use of data, the use of cyber, the use of finance and influence through social media and through our economy is where the Chinese Communist Party will be focused. And in fact, the internet is really the best weapon ever devised by mankind for the purpose of political influence. And so what we're talking about is political warfare. And the Chinese Communist Party's main thrust in the way that they fight is through political warfare. Their goal is to undermine the faith and confidence of people in their democratic systems and to get people convinced that a single-party system is far better.
General Spalding, let me ask you this. We saw recently in the United States several highly visible attacks on various companies and various systems. It's happened to a major pipeline. It's happened to a couple of major communications companies. Obviously, what you're saying holds a great deal of truth in the fact that this could be the site of the next war. How do we stack up against the Chinese? Are we able to defend ourselves on the internet?
Well, no, we can't, because our society is organized fundamentally differently. You know, the Chinese Communist Party has total control over the entire society. That includes the business community. That includes the population. That includes the government. In the United States, the federal government really has control over the federal government. It doesn't have control over the businesses. It doesn't have control over the population. That's not the type of system we have. And so, essentially, what we believe to be were strengths of the U.S. model, which is openness and individual liberty, actually is very difficult to protect that society against a model where the Chinese Communist Party has total control over the Chinese society. And so they can use every element of our open system against us. And so that's why, you know, I have advocated to get the Chinese Communist Party out of the United States. And that means we have to sever these financial and economic and trade and academic and science and technological and people-to-people ties, because the Chinese Communist Party seeks to use those ties to undermine our society from within. And so we are not well armed or well arrayed or well organized, nor will we ever be, to compete with a totalitarian society, because that's not the nature of our system. And, you know, when somebody does something in America, we tend to look at it as a feature of that individual or that company. And so we have laws that protect the population against that. When you have a totalitarian society which doesn't follow the rule of law, doesn't follow laws whatsoever, then it's very difficult for that system to cope with it. And that's why we've had such a hard time dealing with the Chinese Communist Party in the United States.
Okay,
General,
go ahead, Amy.
If China decided to take over Taiwan by force, so you think that will result in any nuclear war between U.S. and...
I do not believe it'll result in direct conflict between the U.S. and China. I think what will happen is that, you know, we may seek to help Taiwan either through resupply, like the Berlin airlift, or maybe through evacuation. I think that's the way that the United States may become involved. Obviously, I think the other way that we could see the U.S. become really, take advantage of this or react to it would be to seek to isolate China from the international order. Now, the Chinese Communist Party is anticipating this, and that's why they've created the Belt and Road Initiative, so that they can create an economic organization of states that cannot be isolated in the event of war with Taiwan.
But that seems like, if we're losing the Pacific, Taiwan going to lose the entire Pacific region. So it's so important. So U.S. just not do anything?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't think the U.S. is going to be in the position to intervene, because I don't think that it's willing to risk direct conflict with China because of the presence of nuclear weapons. But I think what we should have been doing for the last 25 years is balancing the power that the Chinese Communist Party has put on their side of the first island chain. So they've deployed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of munitions on their side of the Taiwan Strait. And this has put, at threat all of the United States bases in the region, all the U.S. forces in the region, to include Taiwan. So it's something that we need to react to, but we need to react to in a way that actually deters war. We're not going to go to direct war with China.
Now, General Spalding, you make a comment in one of the recent news report I wrote about the relationship between University of California in China. A part of the investigation was regarding that UC Berkeley actually went to China and to to have collaborations directly with the Chinese government as well as China's top universities, and really bring the cutting edge technologies to China, and actually open a graduate study institution in China to help China to learn all the new technologies that many of them it's still on the research stage. Can you you make great comments, you have great concerns about those things happening. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think, when I was in China as a defense attaché, there was a hypersonics conference in Xiamen, China, where, NASA scientists were teaching the Chinese how to make hypersonic missiles. So, essentially what happened during the Cold War is that the U.S. and other allies prevented the transfer of technology, innovation, talent, and capital to the Soviet Union because they knew that they would use that to increase their power. And in fact, that's what China has done. And so if we're going to survive this, if we're going to continue to thrive as a society, as a community of democratic societies, then we're going to have to cut off access to that innovation, technology, talent, and capital to China, because essentially they're using it for the purpose of creating or strengthening their own, regime, while at the same time diminishing or undermining free societies everywhere. So it's extremely important that we're not allowing them to use the benefits of a free society, which is innovation, technology, talent, and capital, to strengthen their totalitarian regime.
Amy?
Yeah, General Spalding, I think you were talking about last time because you was in China for a while or something, so you must know lots about this Chinese. You also speak Chinese too, right? Quite a bit of Mandarin, I think, last time in the interview. And you were talking about, so what do you think inside of China and those military people, what do they really have modernized when they, I just try to say is that they really wanted to recognize wanted America is like the enemy, or they just think as a friend they can learn something about?
Well, I think the Chinese Communist Party has done a good job, and this is particularly since the Tiananmen massacre, creating this mass indoctrination program, beginning at kindergarten and going all the way up through the university, and then using the Great Firewall, control of social media and media within the country, and propaganda. So they've done a very good job of creating a very xenophobic society. And so it is a fact that the Chinese Communist Party portrays the United States to the Chinese people as an enemy, and so frequently this is a rhetoric going on in China that they have to deal with the century of humiliation. They have to deal with the United States as an adversary. Now, on an individual basis, the Chinese people are quite friendly, and so this is really something that the Chinese Communist Party creates and modulates through the use of rhetoric in the country in order to, particularly if they have problems, controlling the country, to get people fired up or angry at the United States as a means of distracting or deflecting attention away from the regime.
You were talking earlier about the importance of protecting ourselves on the internet and through the thwarting, I guess, is the best way to put it, or try to stop cyber warfare. How do we stack up there, General? Are we capable of hardening the things that need to be hardened while still trying to keep our open society that you talked about earlier? Are we capable of protecting our military installations, for instance, from attacks and things like that?
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have today is because of the proliferation of particularly commercial, off-the-shelf digital technology that has never been hardened against cyber or against things like electromagnetic pulse, which comes from a high-altitude nuclear detonation, that our entire society is extremely vulnerable. Now, there are some systems within the Department of Defense that are protected, but by and large, our infrastructure is at risk, our data is at risk, and we see that every day. You had the bombing of the AT&T switching center in Nashville over Christmas. You have the water treatment plant in Florida that was attacked. You have the Colonial Pipeline attack. You have the beef packing plant attack. And so from critical infrastructure to data, we are extremely vulnerable in the United States. And can we harden that? Absolutely. Have we hardened it? No. And do I expect the telecommunications companies, the carriers, and the critical infrastructure providers to harden their infrastructure? No, they don't. They don't want to. They don't want to incur the cost. And so this is one of those things where, kind of like the levees in New Orleans, we knew we had a problem. We didn't do it. We didn't address a problem, and it wasn't until there was a disaster that anything happened. And so my fear is that we're kind of sitting on and letting these low-level attacks continue on a daily basis as they undermine our economy and our society, rather than stepping up and protecting. One of the things that I did when I left the government was to start a company that is focused on protecting critical infrastructure and data, because I think it's such an important element of preserving our political independence and sovereignty as a free nation.
Just a follow-up question and an observation. You obviously came to the conclusion before I did just a few moments ago while you were talking, a way to make a great deal of money while also protecting our government installations would be to provide a hardened backbone, like you were talking about, like the company you started. It would seem to me that we harden ourselves after we have a big typhoon or a big hurricane or a big tsunami. We tend to, when we rebuild things, we tend to rebuild them in a way that they won't be destroyed again by a hurricane. At least the smart people do. It would seem to me that once we've been attacked, like the Colonial Pipeline was, it seems to me someone could make a great deal of money and provide strategic safety for key installations if they were prone to doing that sort of thing.
Well, that's exactly what I'm betting on, and our company has done a good job of identifying the vulnerabilities in our telecommunications infrastructure, in our cloud computing and our 5G networks, and have done a good job of building a capability to prevent that, to protect that. And I think we're seeing great interest out in the commercial sector for providing this technology to the military, so that they can become modern and secure. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Now, General, let me ask you this. There's a lot of discussions in the last few days about the U.S. troops withdrawing from Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan has about 92.5 kilometers border with China on the east side, while Afghanistan bordering Iran on the west side. So, we are withdrawing our troops from Afghanistan. Doesn't that make that China, Afghanistan, and Iran, that all linked together?
Well, yeah, you're forgetting Pakistan. So Pakistan is an ally or a partner of China. So yes, but again, I think that the Chinese have, of course, the Vietnamese on their border. They have the Indians on their border. They have the Russians on their border. I think that I would be more concerned if I were them, and I think this is accurate, of the population becoming awakened to the fact that they're living in a totalitarian environment. And the reason that they're not, and the reason the Chinese Communist Party continues to maintain legitimacy, is because they can continue to have their economy grow. And the reason they have their continuous growth in their economy is access to innovation, technology, talent, and capital from the West. And so to the extent that we can cut that off, any advantage that China gets from geographically being able to enter Afghanistan will be offset by the fact that if their economy is not growing, their population is going to start to press for reforms. And so I think that's where we need to focus our attention. Giving the Chinese Communist Party billions of dollars to grow their economy so that their people continue to maintain, their silence, I think is the thing that we need to change.
Wow. We've only just touched the tip of the iceberg, and we're almost out of time here. Amy, do you have a final question for the General?
No, not this time.
Well, I have one. Can you tell me? Can anybody tell me? How do we isolate China? You talked about trying to cut them off from trade. How do we pull that off?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. The idea that the way we can win against China is to try to isolate them from worldwide commerce and how do we pull that off? China has got its fingers everywhere now.
Well, it's exactly the same way that we got into this method, and that is to reverse it. And I think this is the thing, is that people forget that it was 2001 when we allowed them to enter the World Trade Organization. That's only 20 years ago. So to say that we can't reverse this is just the people that really push that narrative are the ones that are making money because the Chinese Communist Party has incentivized them in that way. And so we have to recognize that, it may be a little bit painful, it may be hard to do, but ultimately, in the long run, it's going to allow us to be more productive as an economy, more prosperous as a society, and more free, politically, if we can get them out of our system.
General Spalding, we are just about out of time. I would like you, if you would, to let our audience know how they can find out more about you and what you're doing worldwide to try to tell us more about China. How do we get a hold of information that you put out there?
No, thank you so much. So I'm on Twitter at Robert_Spalding, Spalding. My website is generalspalding.com. And if you're interested in our company, it's called Semper, and that's the website is SEMPRE.ai, semper.ai.
Wow. We want to thank you so much for your time today. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of yours with us.
Thank you so much.
Take care, sir.
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing. General Spalding has been with us several times. You've written articles and used him as a source, so you're familiar with the General's work. I'm going to go to his website and find out more about how we can harden infrastructure, because I'm really quite interested in that myself. When a giant pipeline gets hacked, when a giant pharmaceutical company gets hacked, when all these things happen, it makes you wonder, who's next? And I certainly don't want to be next. We'll take our final break, come back with Amy and Nan in just a moment here on China Uber Alice.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
User-Friendly Computing is Santa Cruz County's top-rated IT service and solutions provider since 1993. Here's why. Service and repair. Whether it's hardware or software, servers or a workstation, we'll fix it or find you a new one. Managed services. Optimize and protect your infrastructure with 24/7, 365 proactive monitoring. Cloud solutions. Cloud IT is the future of small and medium business technology management. Website design. Engage customers and grow your business with tools to update your own content. Backup and recovery. Ensure business continuity with a comprehensive backup and disaster recovery plan. And finally, security and compliance. Advanced security systems help protect your data and keep your business up and running. There's only one place to go for all your computer and IT solutions. User-Friendly Computing, 505 River Street in Santa Cruz. Give Peter and his friendly staff a call at 831-423-9653. And be sure to tell them you heard about it on KSCO.
Cammie Corbin is the executive producer for the Think Local First radio show. Join Cammie each Saturday from 2 to 4 as she hosts what is going on in our community for local businesses and local issues. Think Local First is brought to you by Bruno's Barn Grill in Scotts Valley, Togo's in Scotts Valley, Capitola and Watsonville, Tremonti Italian Restaurant in Santa Cruz, and Kissed by an Angel. Think Local First every Saturday on AM 1080 or KSCO.com.
Recently on the Charles Friedman Show.
I just got this online. It's just a picture, but I think it really says it all. It's a picture of a pizza box, and on the pizza box, printed on the box, is a little note here, open box before eating pizza. And the caption of the picture is, we're not going to make it, are we? And I looked at it for a couple of seconds, and, it dawned. If we are now living in a country, in a society, where people have to be told that in order to eat pizza, you first must open the box. If you have to be told that, if that has to be written down for you, if you can't figure that out on your own, then we're not going to make it, are we? Another sign of the times, ladies and gentlemen. Plenty of signs of the times, and every one of them points straight to hell.
Don't miss the Charles Friedman program, weekdays 9 till noon on KSCO.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Well, every time we have the general on, we get more information. This time, he is convinced that the way to help ourselves is to watch out on the internet and make sure the internet's safe. I guess that's a pretty decent observation. Certainly one that we can all relate to, seeing all the hacks that have taken around the world. We're going to take our news break at the top of the hour now, and we'll be back with more, the second hour of China Uber Alice coming up in about 6 minutes. Keep it right here on AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. Non, Amy, and myself will be back for another hour of your questions right after the news. KSCO Santa Cruz.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Simon with your King of the Hill traffic update. Or traffic and weather update, rather. Highway 9 is still closed between Paradise Park and Glengarry Road for about another hour, and the traffic on Highway 9 in Ben Lomond is slow-moving due to an earlier rollover accident near Highland. The traffic on Highway 1 southbound is slow from the Fishhook down to Camp Patola. Highway 101 is slow-moving just south of Coyote Creek Golf Course down to almost Morgan Hill, and again south of Gilroy. Highway 101 between Highway 129 and San Juan Road near the Red Barn is also moving slowly. Traffic is also slow on Highway 152 eastbound east of Gilroy and on Highway 156 near the traffic light at Union Road. The weather report for tonight calls for increasing clouds with lows in the 50s, light south-southwest wind. The boater's forecast for tonight calls for west winds 5 to 10 knots with wind waves 2 to 3 feet. The time now is 6 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Uber Alles.
China Uber Alles is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Welcome to hour number 2 of China Uber Alles. I'm Bill Graff, along with my guests Nan Su and Amy Howe, our regular guests each week. And we had quite a first hour. We heard from one of our regular contributors, General Robert Spalding, who talked about, whether the nuclear buildup is such a big thing or not. He tended to downplay the nuclear buildup and wanted us to focus more on the fact that if push comes to shove and we lose the internet control war with China, we're sunk. And when you think about it, the general's probably right. I will say this, those photographs of those under construction missile silos is rather disturbing. I will say that. We're going to open up our second hour of the program today, and we're going to ask a question here that I think is in many ways the way many of us are viewing what's going on around the world right now. We're going to ask the question, do you think today's CCP, the Communist Party in China, is still the party of Chairman Mao, or has it gotten gentler and nicer, or has it gotten worse?
In other words, after we allow China to join WTO, we are hoping China is going to change after joining WTO. After we help them to grow their economy, maybe they will, their middle class will try to make a fight. Their middle class maybe will change the country to become like what we hoped, a part of a democratic Western world.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that has happened?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so at all. And I know if I ask Amy that, she's going to say no.
Well, what do we?
I mean, really. So I guess what we're going to, what we're really going to do is ask our audience the same question. The audience out there, 479-1080. Do you think the grand experiment of helping China, Nixon opened up China, then we had, we had all this, these companies went to China and the prosperity and yada, yada, yada. And do you think all that has turned China into a softer country toward us, or do you think we've just given dynamite to the miners?
That it's a right question to ask.
Yeah.
I think about this. A couple weeks ago, we actually have someone call in from San Francisco say, "Hey, after we let China, after we went to China, China lifted tens of millions of people out of poverty. So, what do you think? Do you think China changed? Do you think we should we should keep doing that. Allow our the general asking a very good question that we should reverse. We should reverse the process of letting China join WTO, right? Should we reverse that? It's going to take a great effort to let Western corporations out of China after they are in there so many years. Of course, it's going to make it's going to take a great deal of effort to do that. But do you think it's an effort we should take? Do you think that's going to be sounds like the kind of effort that's really worth a while?
Yeah, well, let's find out. I believe we have a phone caller on. Mike is calling, and let's see if we can push all the right buttons and get Mike on the air. Mike, you're on China Uber Alice. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Very, very informative program. It's very enjoyable. Hey, the sad thing for me, I don't believe America has the will to do what needs to be done. For him to sit there and say our NASA helped them with the missile technology and all the things that he says that we have to do to counterbalance China, I just don't see America doing it. I just seen Devin Nunes on Fox News within this last week, and we already dropped charges on 3 Chinese spies. And I'm sorry, we would rather bicker about wearing a mask and print money than doing what needs to be done to keep America strong. We're weak and we're in decline, and it's sad.
Anything
That's all
you
I
think?
Gotta say.
Well, wait before you go. Do you think you can? You think you might be able to? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Answer this: Do you think we can do anything to turn it around and change it?
I'm not sure. We've gone woke, and here's what I believe needs to be done. He said it. We need to get the Chinese communists out of this country, out of our universities, out of our financial sector, get the spies out. We're so weak and afraid to be called a racist. I understand we do not want to start going after Chinese American patriots here. It's a touchy subject, but we're infiltrated and we have to deal with it. If we don't deal with it, we're sunk. It's just, we've been foolish, and I'm just shocked at America has become so weak because we won't do what needs to be done. We're too politically correct and we're too woke.
Well, we appreciate the call and the idea. Thanks for starting off our second hour for us. We appreciate it.
Wow.
Well, that's
I think that's a
sobering phone call, to say the very least.
Yep. I think that question really got me a couple weeks ago. I spent some time to think about it. There was a caller said that after the Western world's investment went to China and China lifted tens of millions of people out of poverty. So now
they've also killed millions of people outright.
Yeah. Hold on just a second. Okay, hold on just a second. First of all, what is the point? Let's ask what's his point. Now think about this. What's the intent we went to China? What's the intent for the United States and the Western world went to China? Did we go to China in the very first place because we want to go to China to engage a huge charity work?
No.
Come on, it's the responsibility of the Chinese government to get the people out of poverty, not the taxpayer of Western world's job, right? To go to China to lift the people out of poverty.
Now wait, if we're going to be completely honest, okay, then we have to say that the reason we wanted to open up China is because it's a huge market.
Well, I think the huge market part is just one part of it, right? The market, there's a market.
Wait, if you're the owner of a giant American company, China's a big market.
Yeah, absolutely, China is a big market. But keep in mind, at that time, China was not open yet, right? It's really our policy maker that can make the call if we want to go to China or not, because the market is all around the world, everywhere. It doesn't have to be China. It could be Malaysia. That's another huge market. Indonesia, Thailand. So what's the reason, original intent that we went to China? It was really because we thought that China was on our side during the Cold War. So we had this rosy picture. Well, if China was on our side against the Soviet Union, maybe if we make China richer, they may change. Right? That was really the original intent. We tried to make China a part of the Western world. Now, we didn't want to go there to help millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. It's nice, but it's the side effect. After we gives China so much technology, so much investment, after we let China take away our manufacturing industries. I'm not even talking about taking away our manufacturing jobs. I'm talking about they're taking away our whole manufacturing industries. So we close our eyes and let them do it. It's just really because we think maybe they will change.
No, I don't think so. I think the reason we let them do it, or it got done without us doing anything about it, is because we like the end result. In other words, okay, China took our steel business away from us, but we get to buy cheap steel.
Yeah, but why not the cheap steel from Malaysia instead of we went to China?
Well, it's already set up in China. Well, it's fine.
No?
You see what I mean? You see the mentality. It's the mentality. Look, everybody, I've used this example before. For a long time, everybody wanted an iPhone. For a while, every iPhone was made in one factory in China. Every single one. Right? Okay, so if you want an iPhone, automatically you're contributing to the Chinese economy and not our own. Think about it. That's why I don't own an iPhone.
Okay.
But I'm in the minority because when everybody else wanted an iPhone, I didn't. But it's not because I'm smarter than anybody else. It's just because I didn't want to pay $1,100 for a telephone. You know what I mean? So, I mean, look, I think we did it to ourselves. I hate to say it. My grandfather said it best. When you want to know about something, follow the money. The money will tell you the truth about something.
Okay. So money is the part, but still, we didn't have to go to China.
No, we didn't.
We don't have to.
We didn't have to. We could have left it the sleeping giant. We could have let them stay in poverty. But I think when President Nixon went to China and, opened the door and got things going, I think the motivation, I hate to say it, and if I'm wrong, please call up and tell me I'm sniffing up the wrong tree, but I'm pretty sure the motivation was the almighty dollar.
Well, I think from the political part, our corporation, keep in mind, our corporation at that time really have no idea what China's market is. They are so afraid of it.
Well, they did know it was huge. I mean, there's 1 billion people living there.
Well, I think it's a more political originally, not a very economical, because our corporation has no idea what China is. Now, keep in mind, even in 1989, when Tiananmen Square massacre took place, George H.W. Bush, it was him. He actually sent his National Security Council to Beijing and tell Beijing we're not going to do anything about it. Think about this.
Yeah.
Isn't that political? That is political.
Look. Politics follows money. Money follows politics.
Well, at that time, in 1989, we don't really have much corporations going to China yet.
Right.
It's really this rosy picture about what China could become that really made us to where we are right now.
All right, we have a call. Zach in Moss Landing. And thank you, Susan, for bringing that in. Apparently, we're having some typing issues with our machine. Let's see. That's going to be line 1. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, you guys are all right on in this talk, all the angles, because how we need to tackle it. You guys have addressed. We have to think. I think also as a consumer, like right now, I'm standing in my $300 pair of work boots because they were made in America. So I took, they're very good quality, and I did that in principle, but I had to bite the bullet and pay a lot extra money as opposed to getting work boots, let's say made in China or elsewhere. But I do have a better quality pair of boots. So, it's part of thinking as a consumer, because we're the ones who spend the dollars. And then Nan brought up, hey, let's let these other countries compete for our business, like Malaysian steel. That's a great idea. China, what they're doing is they're thinking big. They're setting up their Belt and Road Initiative all over the world, and they're trying to, create a system of ports everywhere. And that's actually genius. I have to give them credit for that. But what we can do is we can compete in the same way, and we could, have some sort of a trade system. I guess we sort of had that. Anyway, but we could basically incentivize businesses to compete better with China in prices. But I think the argument is, at least in the past, was we were doing business with China because we figured, well, if we don't, somebody else will, I think. And then it built them up into this Goliath. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think this. I think you make a great point, but I also think you can look at it the other way. For instance, we did China. We did China a solid by giving them some of the business and some of the stuff, but also we got a lot from China. We got the idea that we could. General Motors could have certain parts for their cars made very cheaply in China, and then have those parts shipped all the way back to the United States, and then build the car in the United States or Canada or Mexico, and still be able to do it way cheaper, even though they ship the parts all over the world.
Right. Yeah, and I wish we could maybe set up some factories, incentivize other countries. I'm a free market guy myself, but the free market is kind of a brutal beast. But when for instance, they sometimes sell things almost for free just to control the market. Like a bunch of years ago, I forgot, like 20 years ago, they controlled the apple juice market by basically almost giving. You know about that?
I do know about that. Absolutely. I grow apple. I have a family farm that grows apples for Martinelli.
Oh, yeah.
I know all about that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I know about worldwide competition, believe me.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a few of the ideas I have. I have other bigger, crazier ideas. You guys know my ideas. We need to compete with them on a big infrastructure level too, because that's what they're doing. They're playing big level games.
I was talking to a guy when I did the afternoon show a number of years ago, and I was talking about this guy who had been to China, and he was amazed because there was some business owner in China who wanted, all his life to own a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And so he ordered one, and it was shipped to China, and it was a Road King with all the the saddlebags and the windshield and the running boards and all all the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. By the time he got done paying all the stuff, the duty and the taxes and what China's government wanted to have it imported and the rest of it, his Harley Davidson Road King motorcycle was $99,000 American dollars.
Really?
Wow.
And he paid it because he wanted to ride a Harley Davidson in Shanghai.
I guess hope it was worth it.
I just look, I look at what people want around the world, and I look at what we want, and you see these shining examples of what people will do to get what they want, and it just blows me away every time I read it.
Tells you China is they're thinking big. They're capitalists now, and they have a lot of money to spend, and that's good for them. But they should be fair when trading with us and not violate copyright laws and all the rest of that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. That's exactly the way I think. Hey, thank you for the call. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
You're welcome.
Wow. That is amazing. Dan in Pacific Grove is our next caller. Dan, you're on China Uber Alice. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, everybody. I believe this fits the context of the current conversation. Lately, some quarters in our society are very fond of pointing back to our founding fathers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, calling them hypocrites, because it took almost 100 years to unwind and get rid of the institution of slavery that this nation inherited from its previous European societies, and to build and put in place a vision they had. And without the country, allowing the country to form, and without collapsing the entire economy by just kicking the feet out from under, with the slavery, such a dominant theme in the southern states, the real hypocrites are the ones promoting policy right now, who would rather pay a bit less for convenience, not so the nation survives, but for convenience, to purchase products a bit cheaper made by slaves, people who are in effect slaves. So the real hypocrites are the ones supporting slave states right now. And
that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Even though we don't have the hard word slavery in America anymore, or in most other countries, we do buy products made by people who aren't paid enough everywhere.
And they may be killed, they may be murdered for their ethnic group they belong to, or speaking words desirous of freedom.
Right.
That's called, the property of the state. That's not called freedom. I call that slavery. And the same people want us to go down the same road. Yes. Well, thank you. I'll listen in, okay?
Okay, thank you for the observation. We appreciate that. I liked Zach's idea that he's standing, he's on his job site, and he's standing in his $300 pair of American-made boots, but he's doing it because he wanted something made in America, which I fully relate to. I fully relate to that one. But also a little bit of pride in the fact that he helped keep Americans employed. In addition to, using the boots himself, for what he's doing to make a living, but he's also, helping another American worker with their living by buying boots that probably shouldn't cost $300, but they do. We used this example in an earlier program, I guess about a year ago, about the fact that I would be willing to pay way more for a pair of Levi jeans made in America than a pair of Levi jeans made in some third world country by somebody who's not getting paid enough. I just, I think it would be, would help me, because I think the jeans would be better made myself, because I remember when they were made in America, and they were great jeans. They're still great jeans, but they're not as great as they were. And, you know what I mean? And I'd be willing to pay a little more money for a good pair of Levi jeans. Boy, I remember products when I was a kid. Boy, we had some stuff on the ranch I grew up on. They were, I think if some of those early pieces of equipment my dad used to farm when I was a kid, if they were kept in a garage, they'd still be there. They wouldn't be rusted. The metal in those things was unbelievable. We just don't build things the way we used to. I guess it's because we want the cars to be lighter and we don't have to use as much fuel to get them down the road. They got to be more energy efficient. When my dad had an old Chevrolet pickup when I was a kid, man, the fender on that thing weighed like 9,000 pounds. It was heavy. The whole car was just a tank. It was a tank. It was something else. Nick in Royal Oaks, you're on China Uber Alice. Thanks for calling.
Bill, thanks. You remind me of the Giants' last pennant parade. They were parading downtown, and aren't they in Levi Stadium?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think that's the 49ers are in Levi Stadium.
Oh, the 49ers. Okay.
I think.
I noticed that their jeans weren't, but you were talking about the pants. Well, you can, because go down to Levi's in San Francisco and they'll custom make you one.
Oh, I believe that, and Nick, I've heard that from other people too. I mean, yeah, if you want to go down and get measured, they'll do the whole tailor thing for you, measure your legs and all that stuff, and build you a pair of jeans, right? Yeah.
So you include my sites of the past, and I'll brief you on them because there was mentioned that the U.S. got technology to the Chinese, and I believe I viewed that as my knowledge, and then I thought at the time maybe it was cool China because we're like an invasion because all of our plants are coming over and then through the profits of their labor we would be building our defense force. So this is it balances that kind of perspective.
Well, yeah, you could, Nick, you could look at it that way that, everybody got something out of the transaction for sure. But I just think in the end, in the long run, we're not getting, the balance is not there for the United States anymore, I don't think.
Well, the topic was
That's
money,
right.
so that point of view I thought had to be brought.
Yeah. Thanks for calling, Nick. We appreciate it.
Well, this is for money cooking.
All of our callers have made very interesting points today. I just wish, I wish the generals, I wish what the general's advice on what we need to do to survive this whole thing worldwide has already taken place, and we didn't have to worry about it anymore. I don't know how we're going to get China out of our lives. It's going to take. How long did it take us to get here? 35 years.
Well, China started its opening its door in 1978. At the end of 1978, they start trying to attract the foreign business.
That's
and
43 years.
Oh, not yet. Start attracting the foreign business and investments to go to China in 1970. At the end of 1978, you can start counting from January 1st, 1979, which is okay. So it take us what really make China grow really fast. It's after 2001, China joined WTO. That's really a big push to China's economy. If you look at the numbers from 2001 to 2011, that 10 years, China's economy grow more than 5 times. More than 5 times in 10 years. GDP. Now, from 2011 to 2021, they double. So from 2001 to 2021, China's economy grew 10 times as much after they joined WTO in the last 20 years. So that's, joining WTO, it's really, making China's economy take off. That's what it is. It's really the entire Western world's effort, mainly the United States' effort to make China become what it is today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now we have to, like what the general said, we need to stop that. We need to stop that, and we were going to go to reverse the whole process.
Will it take us that long to reverse it?
I don't know. So, it really depends on you and me and everybody. I mean, think about this. There's a lot of people still want to go to China doing business, right? Yeah. So it's everybody's, I don't think United States government is going to say, hey, you can't go. They don't have that, our constitution.
Well, first of all, they can't say it right now, because if they said you can't do it now, then we don't have anything to replace any of that stuff we're getting from China right now. We have to gear up.
Right. So what do we do? I mean, I think it's everybody need to join this discussion. It's a very important discussion.
Well, I think everybody needs to certainly contemplate what we're talking about. For at least think about it when you go to the store. I mean,
oh yeah,
really,
yeah.
You go to the store and you look at, oh man, go to like Walmart or Costco and just stand in one of the aisles and look around you. You go, wow, how much of this stuff? Where did this come from? What country made all this stuff? My God, I mean, really, it's there's a lot of stuff in, like, you go to Walmart, there's a lot of, I know half that stuff in Walmart.
Yeah, we can certainly make a lot of things politically correct in the United States, but hey, if we are buying all these products from the country, it doesn't pay any respect to the human rights, to women, to children, to the prisoners of conscience. We're not really politically correct. We're just trying to hide all these dirty things in China.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm glad you said it, not me, because nobody would believe me. They might believe you. Let's check in with some of our callers. Worm Farm. Oh, this is the best name I've ever seen for anybody on the call board. Worm Farm Al. You're on China Uber Alice.
Hey, right on, y'all. Thank you very much. What a pleasure. That general is something else. Am I coming through okay?
You're coming through just fine.
Okay, great. Hey, listen, I got a couple things for you about what to do, but before I forget, is it true that Chinese troops were up in Canada training, and finally the Canadian military had enough and kicked them out? Is there any truth to that?
I know they were training up in China. I don't know if the Canadian government finally had enough and kicked them out. I think it was if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a joint exercise at the invitation of the Canadian government.
Yeah, I'm very nervous about that. I think they were up there under false pretense. We better start looking at our northern border and make sure the southern border is not a smokescreen. But, Billy, the thing I'd like to do, it dawned on me. Look, let's start with this. Let's look at what we don't need from China. Let's start there. Okay, the first thing, obviously, we don't need Chinese cars. We have cars coming out of our ears out here. Let's start eliminating what we don't need. How's that sound?
Well, that sounds great. There is a little bit of a problem with what you're proposing, Al. Here it is. The batteries, the lithium, the stuff we build Tesla batteries with here in the United States of America, some of those exotic rare minerals come from China. And we haven't got the mines built up enough in other places in the world to build the batteries with those rare earth minerals, except if we buy them from China. By the way, the rare earth minerals horribly, and when I say horribly, it's an understatement, horribly rape the environment. The way they're mined and the way they have to be extracted just destroys the earth. So if you buy an electric car, you're not doing the environment any help at all.
Yeah, I understand. You know what it's like, that 1,000-mile journey. But we do have to take the initial first step. Don't you think, somehow?
Sure. I just don't think electrifying our entire transportation system and powering it with the current electrical grid in the United States is the way to go at this point. We don't have the infrastructure. Hey, we can't keep the electricity on when there's a fire in California. If you add 300,000 cars, to San Francisco, what's that going to do to the electrical grid? It just doesn't. I think we need to think things out just a little better before we just jump on the wagon.
Yeah, but you know what the general said? He made it sound like pretty easy. Do a reversal of what got us into this global mess.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
Well, that can't be that hard. We've only been in the muck for 20 years. We've only sold out the store, sold ourselves out for a bat of an eye.
Yeah. And I think he makes a great point when he says we got to harden our infrastructure, meaning the internet, against hackers. I think we need to do that. That's where we ought to start, in my opinion. That way, then, at least they can't turn off our pipelines and stop our oil and, threaten our water and that kind of stuff. I think we need to harden our infrastructure that controls the big company access. I think we need to do that one first.
You got the right idea, Billy. Thank you, y'all. I totally appreciate it. God bless y'all.
Thanks for calling. Let's move on. We'll take Mark in Santa Cruz. Let's see if I push the right button. Mark, you're on KSCO and China Uber Alice.
Hey, great show as always, guys. I just wanted to make a couple points. If you want to go 100% full-fledged American, then you go to Landis County or Elko County, and that's in Nevada. Landis County is where they do gold mining, and they're the third world's largest gold miner. Landis County all by itself, and they are what's called a constitutional county. And also, Elko County is now a constitutional county, so they only follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to the T, and then anybody that's prosecuting what they call their citizens will be prosecuted. The other point I wanted to make is they have something called the Patriot Phone, and it's the youngest Bitcoin millionaire. He decided to make his own phone and his own app store, so it's like any app that's ever been taken off, he has it, and it's like a Patriot app store that's already preloaded on your phone, and everything is made sure that you can't be intercepted as much as possible. I'm sure there's always a way, but it's a phone that you can buy. It's called Freedom Phone, and he has like a Patriot app store. It's already preloaded. It comes preloaded with DuckDuckGo and has Getter and
so
all
he started a company that at least makes an attempt at keeping.
Correct.
Well, that's a great idea.
What is this called?
Yeah,
Freedom
so
Phone? Is it called Freedom Phone? If I do the Google searches, I say...
well, wait a minute. You might want to do it on DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, no, just type in Freedom Phone. It'll show up.
All right.
And there's a guy who made it, the youngest Bitcoin millionaire. He made the phone. But yeah, check out Landis County, Elko County. It's in Nevada. They're called what's called a constitutional county. And the right now what's going on in between the California-Nevada line is in order for them to start doing the lithium mining, they have to burn down the forest. So that's why there's a forest way out there right on our line. And the company's called American Lithium, and they've already drained 25% of the lake. And they have to use fresh water to mine out all the lithium, which will cut down the mining or cut down the mountain. And that's what's going on right now in Nevada with Nevada-California border. So that's really what's going on. So they just recently got funded like $480 million on their first day out, and I don't even know where it's at right now. And this was a while ago. So that's what's going on over there. Landis County, Elko County, constitutional counties. Look it up. Thanks for your guys'.
Thanks for calling, Mark. We appreciate it. That's a lot of information. Wow. All right, let's check in with Mike in Santa Cruz. Mike, you're on KSCO. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Maybe you guys could do a show on trade agreements, national and international trade agreements.
That is a great idea.
I mean, it's easy enough to say reverse it, but how many of the reversals will be illegal from, like, even international law? And I'm ignorant about all that stuff, so I'm just going to dump it in your guys' lap. Great show, thank you.
Well, thanks for the idea.
Thank you for the idea. It sounds like we need to look for some sort of some of the trade experts.
I'm sorry, Mike hung up. He just wanted to drop that little idea and then take off and listen to the show on the air.
The trade. We need to talk about
it. That's a good idea for a show.
Someone really know what's going on in this area.
And who's trading with who and how much the deal's worth. And boy, that'd be fun to find out.
Yep.
Is that under the Freedom of Information Act? Can we find that stuff? I'm asking you now as a reporter.
See,
how far do you have to dig to get that info?
Well, you can get that information, but the problem is you really need somebody with the expertise to
explain it.
To explain it.
Yeah.
Even you're reading it, you may not know that what's in there. So someone need to also make a comparison.
Uh-huh.
You know, what's the language between U.S. and China, and Germany and China, where U.S. and Russia. You need that kind of a comparison. That to know what's going on.
We lost Amy for a little while, but she is back on the program.
Yeah, I'm back.
What happened? Did your internet go out?
No, I don't know. Just want to say no more. I'm not internet. I'm talking about T-Mobile.
Oh well.
Just no more. And then.
But they have the best. They say they have the best 5G, Amy.
Yes, supposed to be. I don't think it's your end that dropped me.
Oh, maybe.
And then I call with nobody answers.
Well,
yes, wow.
We've taken a lot of phone calls in the time when.
That's probably why, yeah.
Yeah. We've been talking about how to uncouple from China, and it occurs to me in listening to your story earlier in the program, in the first hour, we sort of come around again to the fact that a lot of sorrow happens, and when it happens, it affects a lot of different people, and I suspect that should we uncouple with China, there will be a lot of people unhappy in China because of the fact that their sweet deals might go away.
Yeah, also, I think a lot of people here against that idea, decoupling from China, it's all big corporations.
Well, and those big corporations then fuel the government to treat the workers badly, and you end up with a situation like what Amy grew up with.
Yep.
You end up with people being persecuted by their government because of pressure from other parts of the system.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now that's the question again. Let's ask. All these corporations, they really talk about being politically correct. Even they even change a lot of names.
Oh yeah.
The things, how you call things in the company, right?
I'm surprised Huawei still uses that name. If I was Huawei, I'd change the name of my telephones. They just got such a bad rap, early on. I wouldn't buy one of those things.
So anyway, all these American corporations, that's what I'm talking about. The American corporations, in the last 20 years, a lot of these corporations, the way they say things, they want to make it politically correct to say things.
Right.
So they have a personnel, they have a lot of effort put into it. But the problem is, what makes you think you are politically correct if you go into a country has a sweatshops and then they're doing all these kind of things? It doesn't make it you politically correct, right?
No, it doesn't. Not only does it not make you politically correct, it also points to the fact that you are in fact the other way.
That's right.
Look. When they built the factory, the 3-story factory, and then they installed on the second and third floors the nets to keep people from jumping off and killing themselves, the suicide nets.
Yep.
That says it all, doesn't it? They're not treating their workers very well.
That's it. That's a Foxtongue. That's Foxtongue. That's the corporation.
Yeah. Well, so then they move the factory to some other country, and hopefully that they're treating everybody in the other country a little better. But they're still making phones in giant factories.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make anything politically correct. That's just doesn't make sense. But however, that's how our big corporation think things.
Yeah. I don't understand. I guess I do understand, because I understand that greed sort of powers the world. Even if your intentions are good, eventually greed will rear its ugly head and, motivate people to do bad things. What motivates the CCP? Is it greed?
Well, I think the CCP has always, they never change. They have always looked at the United States and the Western world as their enemy. They have always. They never change their mind. I think anybody who actually think that CCP, by doing business with the Western world, will change, it's actually very naive.
Well, obviously, when we hear Amy's stories, we know We know what the motivation was at least years ago, and we know they haven't changed that much. Obviously, that was the question, right, Amy?
Yeah, but basically, when they opened the door, that time they're desperate for money, so they put some kind of deceptions, saying we are good, we're changing, we reformed, so we will be a part of a westernized country, whatever, And the end, I think people should realize that, because so many corporations at the beginnings, they even lost a lot of money, but they're so embarrassed to talk about it. For instance, Motorola, right, the first cell phone company was opened in China. And even before that, the airplane, Douglas McDonnell?
Yeah, McDonnell Douglas,
that factory, they lost in Shanghai. Because at that time in China, they always say, I provide you facilities, lands, whatever. They know those things you can take with you, right?
Right.
Whatever, you put it there, you build the factories, you give it technology, and even invest the 50%, which was partnership supposed to be. And then they say, no, we're not going to do what you want us to do. So what you have to do is you leave everything to them, and you just say goodbye. So they use that all the time. But I don't know why people don't learn about it.
Well,
I don't know, but
I think because they're blinded by the prospect of a rosier picture,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably have some smart people, so they just hit the run very quickly. So they can make it. But for long term, but they want you to be long term. For instance, Amway, right? Amway, they were successful in other country, like including Russia and Eastern Europe. It used to be a communist country. And only China, they asked them to build all the facilities, the storage room. So that you can take with you. So they did. And they still don't allow them to operate. They say that those multi-level companies are illegal in China. Even they shut them down. Once they build the storage room, once they fill up all the inventories, they say goodbye. So they just leave everything there.
Wow.
It's so embarrassing to talk about. Also, big companies, they just don't want to talk about it. They don't want it to upsetting their shareholders.
Yeah, I was just going to say shareholders is the key word. They don't want to make the people unhappy who invested in the company. Yeah. Good, great observation, Amy. I hadn't even thought of that. That's
yes, we saw lots of it.
Yeah. Well, I think we have had a very informative program today. I know that having the general on rattles some people's cages. I know it rattles my cage when I hear him talking about fundamentally don't worry about the nuclear missile farm so much as you should be worrying about the internet being taken over by China. He makes a valid point. Yes. He makes a valid point.
You can make your company paralyzed.
Oh, easily.
Right?
Easily.
Yeah, they did. Look at the oil, what they did for that.
Yeah,
right?
Colonial Pipeline shut down. And we don't know if that was China or Russia or who shut that down, just some hackers from somewhere. But look, it illustrates the point how vulnerable we really are. And I think we ought to, as Americans, think about that a lot more than we do. Nan, what do you think? Do you think we have a chance to turn it around? Like the general says?
Yeah, I think that it's important for everyone to notice how important it is. I think a lot of Americans still don't even realize how important this thing is.
Well, you know what the problem is? And maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe I'm not speaking for all Americans, but I will say this. We get so involved in our lives. We're worried about the COVID. If we're running a restaurant, we're worried about paying the employees. We're worrying about, where we're going to get our next $4.50 a gallon gasoline from. We're worried about everyday life. And it's almost unfair for us to throw out, pay attention to China. It's going to get us, when all the other stuff in people's lives are going on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we need to consider the lifestyle of our future generations. I think that's the way it is.
Yeah, you're worried about your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I fully get that. You know, I have nieces and nephews, and they're just starting their families, and a couple of them have had kids. And, you know, you wonder about how those youngsters what world they're going to grow up in.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's scary. I know that. At least I get to get some common sense from Amy and you every week on the program. Find out a little bit about how another part of. See, the reason why I think our program is so important is I don't have the same point of view because of where I was raised that Amy and Nan do. They have a unique perspective because they've lived in a totalitarian regime. And I don't know what that's like, although I think some of our American government might have come close at times. We certainly don't operate the same way they do in the CCP in communist China. And I hope I never know that firsthand. I hope.
Well, you're lucky.
In our lifetime.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't happen to me or my descendants.
Well, if we're not careful, and this is the point, right? See, look at the how things, what the general say today. If we're not careful, what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Boy, I hate to end this program on a downer, but Amy's stories do bring out how horrible they can end up. The Uyghurs are still being persecuted. They're still harvesting organs. They're still operating horribly to the people in Tibet. Look, it ain't good for a lot of people in this world. I hate to say it, but we need to keep talking about it so people keep remembering that this is taking place. Out of sight, out of mind doesn't work. At least not for me. Anyway, on that note, let's take our final break, and we'll come back to end our program for today.
Hello, I'm Linda Levy from the 2021 Dune Art Studio Tour, a free event open to the public Saturday and Sunday, July 31st and August 1st, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. 24 talented and fully vaccinated artists in 12 studios rise up from the ashes of last summer's fires to welcome and inspire visitors. Dune Art Tour information on Wiki. Look for our bright yellow signs.
I'm Barry Scott from the Cabrillo Host Lions Club in Aptos. Join us on August 7th, Saturday, in Aptos Village Park from 8:30 to 2 p.m. for our Midsummer Magic Market. Free admission, plants, gifts, arts, collectible. Bingo from 11 to noon. Aptos High School Leos will be selling food. If you're interested in becoming a vendor, call me at 831-612-6574. Sponsored by Cabrillo Host Lions.
Hey, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I have this amazing patient, Lauren, here, and she had a few things to say.
Hi, I'm Lauren Spencer, a local realtor, and I've been seeing Duncan for years now. I had a biking accident, and he's been adjusting me since then, and it's been amazing. But lately, I've had trouble with my feet, and I'm an avid walker, avid biker, avid golfer, and my feet were aching all the time, and I tried Duncan's TRT machine, which is an amazing stem cell machine that rejuvenates the cells. And my feet, I've had like 3 or 4 sessions with the machine, and my feet are like new. No aches, no pains. It's a miracle. So I really highly recommend Duncan and his chiropractic services, but also that TRT machine. You got to try it.
Wow, thanks, Lauren. That was awesome. So we still have the $49 special. Come on in and see if it works for you. Thank you.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Well, that's our program for today. We're just about out of time. Nan, thank you again. And Amy, as always, thank you for your participation. It really makes the program. I want to thank all of our listeners as well. Join us next Thursday for another program, China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz.